Chapter 19. Eduardo Fromage. The walnut whistled through the gap between Winston's ears, but the shout had almost made him leap out of his skin with fright. He looked around, panting, to see who or what it was that was hollering at him. It was a large rat. He was hanging out over the top of one of the wicker hampers by the entrance to the food hall, looking very cross indeed. He clambered out and made his way over to Winston, who was still trying to get his breath back. "Goodness me," the rat was saying. "Never have I seen anything like it in my life. Approaching a food preparation area looking like you've just rolled in a muddy ditch. Just think of the germs." Then he shuddered from his whiskers to his tail and recoiled away from Winston as though he was made of fire. "I'm sorry," said Winston. "Have I done something wrong? I was only going to get a tiny bit of cheese." "Wrong?" the rat snorted. "You were about to go wandering amongst some of the finest foods available across the world, and just look at you. You're filthy, absolutely filthy." Winston looked down at himself. In the warm yellow glow of the food hall's Christmas lights, he had to admit that he did look very grubby indeed. He turned his paws over and was shocked to see that their usual pinkness had disappeared under a thick layer of dirt. His ears drooped with embarrassment, and under the layer of grime, his cheeks flushed pink. "I'm so sorry," he squeaked. "I'm just really hungry, and I've had quite a busy night." The rat sniffed rather haughtily, but softened when he saw how little and floppy-eared and tired Winston looked. "Not to worry, little chap," he said, before drawing himself up proudly. "My name, by the way, is Eduardo Fromage. I like to think of myself as the night manager here. And as such, I can't have any germs getting near the grub. It would be a terrible business. You've got to be ship-shape and sparkling clean to go into the food hall. Like me. Look how shiny my fur is, and smell me. That's the most expensive cologne the store sells." Eduardo turned round slowly on the spot for Winston to admire his glossy fur and curled whiskers, and to take in the rather strong smell of spicy perfume and soap. "Now let's get you scrubbed up and fed," Eduardo said kindly. "What's your name, by the way?" Winston told him. "Marvellous," said Eduardo. "Well, just you follow me, and soon you'll be sparkling." 5 minutes later, Winston found himself on a gleaming white counter in another section of the department store. Instead of food, this bit of the shop had all sorts of crystal bottles full of coloured liquids and little pots and boxes of powders and creams as far as the eye could see. There were lots of advertisements with pictures of glamorous men and women on them, and the entire place smelled of roses and summer meadows and cleanliness. There were mirrors everywhere, and Eduardo stopped every few seconds to admire himself in them. Winston got quite a start when he saw his own reflection. He was a frightful state. No wonder Eduardo had thrown a walnut at him. On the way, Winston had tried to explain his important mission, and that, as lovely as a wash would be, he had to track down Father Christmas in the shop before he set off around the world on his sleigh. The trouble was, Eduardo liked to natter. He nattered and nattered and nattered, and Winston couldn't get a word in edgeways. It turned out that Eduardo had lived in a department store all his life, and no one, apart from the owner, knew the place better. When the shop was closed, Eduardo spent his evenings wandering around the place, making sure that everything was spick and span. Living in Fortesques had given him quite a taste for the finer things in life. His office, as he called it, was a hamper lined inside with a silk scarf and lots of lavender-scented pillows. Eduardo explained most of this as he was filling a small sink with water. When he was satisfied there was enough in the basin, he said, "Rightio, Winston, in you get." "In there?" asked Winston, peering over the side. The only other experience he'd had with water was puddles. He unwound his scarf from his neck and gingerly clambered down, and found that the water was actually rather warm. He paddled around in it. It was quite fun, and he giggled as the water splashed in between his toes. Suddenly a great dollop of floral-smelling cream landed on his head. Eduardo was hard at work, dragging over lots of different bottles of lotions and creams, and was squirting them into the sink and onto Winston. He told Winston to give his fur a good scrub. Winston was slightly dubious at first, but he did as he was told, and before long, the water in the sink was murky and brown as all the dirt from the city streets came away. After a quick rinse, Eduardo helped Winston out and handed him a flannel. Winston finally emerged, gleaming white, his fur almost sparkling. "Nice and clean," announced Eduardo. "No germs, and you look much better. I think it's time we had a little something to eat." Winston didn't say anything. He didn't have to. His tummy grumbled very loudly in excitement, and as he followed Eduardo back to the food hall towards all that delicious smelling grub.